Hi everyone, welcome to Difference Frames the World, a channel to view the world from a different angle. Before starting today's video, we'd like to apologize to our viewers for not updating the channel in over a month, as too many things have been going on these past weeks. That being said, we plan to return to a normal upload schedule in August with at least 2 videos a week. With that out of the way, hi everyone, I'm the newest addition to the DFTW team, and I'll be helping make videos in the future. Today we're going to discuss the relationship between China and the United States, as Beijing and Washington have been trying to break the ice recently. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken managed to visit Beijing after relentless tries and even unexpectedly met the Chinese President Xi Jinping. Though there was no red carpet to greet him at the airport, China's diplomats and national leaders did show him politeness upon arrival. When Antony Blinken visited Saudi Arabia, the Saudis failed to find a U.S. flag to put behind him. In Beijing, it was easy for China to find America's national flag, which many were probably also made in China. No joint statement was announced after Blinken visited China, and there's been no substantial progress in the relations between Beijing and Washington.
I had an important conversation with President Xi Jinping. Direct engagement and sustained communication at senior levels is the best way to responsibly manage our differences and ensure that competition does not veer into conflict. And I heard the same from my Chinese counterparts. We both agree on the need to stabilize our relationship.
He invited the Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang to visit the US when the latter met him. However, Mr. Qin Gang might be gone forever for some reason not disclosed by authorities. The Chinese Foreign Minister has been absent from public view for nearly a month. Some speculated that he might be in trouble because of his alleged affairs with the journalists in Hong Kong, but we hardly think so, but that's just our opinion. His absence from the public casts a shadow on the erratic relations between the US and China. The tension between the two countries began when China became the second largest economy. Obama introduced the Pivot to Asia policy and invited India to corner China and put Beijing as a strategic rival, like Moscow. Donald Trump visited Beijing after he became America's most questionable tenant of the White House, and the Chinese greeted him as a king in the Forbidden City. The Forbidden City has nearly 10,000 rooms, which may have shocked Trump, as his White House may have seemed a little bit small. When Donald Trump returned to the US, he began to curb China's development with trade and tech wars. In December 2018, the US even instructed Canada to arrest Meng Wanzhou and detained her in Canada for 3 years. Many believe this was an attempt to dismember Huawei, China's tech giant, as Washington had done to Alstom France. With Chinese government's relentless negotiation with the US, Meng Wanzhou was released and returned to China. It is worth mentioning that the new Chinese ambassador to the United States has been deeply involved in talks to save Meng Wanzhou. Meng Wanzhou's return to China was a victory, but the US continued to hinder Huawei with stricter controls. Not only did the US ban Huawei products from entering the US market, but it also forced its allies to dismantle Huawei equipment. Even though the Huawei CFO was set free, Huawei's situation has not improved. The United States imposed stricter export constraints, and the Chinese telecom giant could not get high-end chips and critical components from the United States or its allies. The US ban has helped Apple win the battle with Huawei in the smartphone sector, but the Chinese tech giant is likely to return to the 5G phone market with a domestically produced chip at the end of 2023. Even so, it can hardly compete with Apple outside of China, as Huawei users can only use Google services if they take specific measures which are far from user-friendly. Huawei was not the only one of the leading Chinese companies that the US sanctioned, and almost on every front China takes lead, the US puts related companies on a block list. Currently over 1,000 Chinese companies are blocked by the United States. Many Chinese companies are in dire situations and face challenges from the US and its allies. Since Joe Biden stepped into the White House, the relations between China and the United States have worsened to the lowest point ever. Even though he disagreed with his predecessor, he continues Donald Trump's hostility towards China, and he even imposes stricter controls to slow down China's progress in many areas, especially the high-tech field like artificial intelligence. The US forbids ASML from shipping its EUV and DUV machines to China, hoping to stop China's chip manufacturing below 14 nanometers. It is noteworthy that neither the US nor the Netherlands can make EUV machines by themselves, and over 90% of components are purchased from all over the world. The US does not even own the core technology in the EUV or DUV machines, so ASML claims it can ship its sub 14 nanometer lithography machines to China without getting approval from the US. It has already delivered 23 DUV machines to China in the first quarter of 2023 without a license from the US, which makes the US very disappointed. Its Q2 2023 results shows shipment to China speeding up even if the global semiconductor industry is slowing down. China stays strong, and it's still ASML's primary profit source. ASML is also preparing to make equipment with no US technology for the Chinese market, and the operations will be in China through one of its suppliers. ASML says no to the United States because of several reasons. First, it needs raw materials from China, particularly when its suppliers in Russia and Ukraine cannot provide them due to the war. Second, the Chinese market is essential to boost its revenue. Only some companies can afford to buy these expensive machines. The third and the most important reason is that it's afraid China will have its own EUV machines, which may come true in 2023 or the following year. China might even become a direct competitor to sell DUV and EUV machines. Take SSD and memory products for example. Samsung, Kingston, West Digital, Seagate, Micron, and Toshiba used to sell their SSD at a hefty price before 2017, when Chinese manufacturers could not produce them. China's SSD manufacturers have reduced 1 TB SSD prices less than $40, and 16 GB memory chips from China are sold for lower than $30. Another example is China's MRI machines, which reduced the market price by 90%. Now EUV machines from ASML are sold at 100 to 150 million euros, and the new model in 2024 will be sold at twice the price, reaching 300 to 350 million euros. Just imagine at what price China will sell its EUV machines if China reduces the market price by 50 to 80%. ASML and some other companies in Japan will not be able to survive. The West is forcing China to become an all-purpose competitor, and China is not given the option to say no. We often say that the Chinese are willing to share the market with other countries instead of driving them away or outcompeting them. In the past several decades, China has been trying to buy high-end technology and products from the West instead of making them themselves. For instance, Lenovo does not even make any of its critical components like the CPU, memory, and storage, just to name a few, and still buys them from American, Japanese, and Korean suppliers. The United States has not sanctioned Lenovo as the latter follows the rules and standards set by the Americans. Lenovo does not own any operating systems, processing units, memory storage, or motherboards. Huawei, like Lenovo, used to buy many of its components from the West, but unlike Lenovo, it has developed its own software, hardware, and even become a #1 patent holder worldwide. Not all Chinese companies are like Huawei, it is true, but China is the only country that has a complete global supply chain. The US and its Western followers want to build a new supply chain that excludes China, but no other country can meet their requirements for the next 20 years. We talked about India and Vietnam in the previous video, and today we still wonder if they can replace China in the short term. For some reasons, we do not want to say anything negative about India, however, many investors decide to stay away from India. Foxconn is one of them, and it is announced to exit from India. Even though its major client Apple wants to benefit from India's growing economy, Foxconn has decided to pull itself away. Interestingly, another major supplier of Apple, Wistron, has also decided to end its business in India after 10 years of operation. India's Tata Group will acquire Wistron's iPhone factory in August of 2023 with the price of $600 million, which Wistron does not confirm nor negate. India seems to become a graveyard of sort for foreign companies. We hardly believe it can attract more multinational companies than China. The US politicians want the divorce from China, but the two countries are intertwined. China is the most critical service and commodity provider for the United States and the biggest consumer market. For instance, the US government launched a tech war with China and forbade companies from selling high-tech components, services, and machines to China. For instance, the Biden administration prohibits US companies from providing cloud computing services to their Chinese clients. Still, it has to allow US giants like Intel, AMD, and Qualcomm to provide chips to Chinese companies. Another key player in the semiconductor industry is Micron. It has decided to expand its operations in China after the Chinese authorities banned its products from some key areas. America's interest groups benefit from China's growth. As they control many sectors in China, not only is China the world's biggest prominent customer market, but it is also the second largest importer after the United States. Also, many exports from China are produced by American multinational companies in China. In short, the United States is China's most significant stakeholder. If the US decouples from China, the US will suffer more, not China. As we mentioned in a video uploaded 2 years ago, the US and China are like a couple, quarreling all day and night, but they are not ready to divorce yet. But that doesn't mean they're happy. Thank you everyone for watching this video. If you enjoy this new content, please let us know in the comments below. And if you also don't like this content, please also let us know in the comments below. With that being said, I hope you have a great day.